So I talked a bit before. Now I'm just going to talk a bit more and get it out of the way, and then you won't hear from me really for the rest of the rally. It's going to be great. But first, I want to talk about my personal relationship to music and activism, because I think it's very, I guess interesting would be the word. It's quite an interesting pathway through some interesting genres, and I want to talk about it because that's what it feels like to me to celebrate that connection between music and activism. So when I was growing up, to be honest, politics was cringe. Talking about politics was a cringe thing to do. Amongst my generation, my friends, the idea that you would, care about things enough to get involved in politics was kind of seen as silly. It was seen as preachy, overly genuine to the point of mock-worthiness. And the fact that people cared enough to let the world infect their art felt wrong. And this is something I really internalized. It felt like if they were writing music about politics, they were letting the world get to them. They weren't writing about genuine personal emotions. And you can already tell how silly this is. But as a kid, this really resonated with me because I couldn't figure out why... Or I could figure out, I guess, why politics just didn't resonate with me in music, even though I increasingly cared about politics in my personal life. I can theorize forever on exactly why this is, but it's not surprising that in our society, growing up when I did, I saw artists getting political as some unexpected, unwanted, and useless thing. But I couldn't have been more wrong. And this all started when I was in high school, and I heard one of the first songs I ever heard by The Wonder Years, who have become my favorite band. And this is before I even really knew them too well or liked them too much. In fact, I didn't even really like this song. And I didn't like it because it was the first song off their first record, and it opened with a few lines that talked about needing to stand up for yourself, and then went straight into, I'm not sad anymore, I'm just tired of this place. This homophobic BS that's somehow okay just because you didn't mean it that way. And that was so bluntly political, so bluntly this is my belief, that it honestly was jarring to me. I was like, oh, why do they care so much? Why are they being so outspoken about it? And then I saw it more in other artists around. They had a contemporary by the name of Fireworks. Fireworks are a great punk band who are very known for having very subtle song titles, such as, I Support Same-Sex Marriage from their first record. That's just the song title. This had an element of bluntness to it that I think got to me because I saw this as kind of cringe. But I couldn't figure out why they were so proud of it. They were so upfront about it. It was the thing they wanted you to know. Instead, I ended up gravitating towards things that I felt were more personal and emotional, because for some reason those felt more real. And I fell into the emo punk of the early 2000s. Now, there's a lot to say about the emo punk of the early 2000s, but the main thing I want to get across is how not great it was in a lot of ways, how it misappropriated a lot of the energy, a lot of the sentiment that was in punk and emo, personal emotion, into ways that felt kind of twisted. I ended up really relating to bands like Good Charlotte. And Good Charlotte was one of a number of bands who had a genre of song that was basically, I have an ex-girlfriend I don't like, and therefore I am going to talk very explicitly about some type of violence. Good Charlotte literally have a song called My Bloody Valentine, which is extremely explicit about killing your partner's ex-boyfriend, but it's not serious. Hit the Lights, a pop-punk band, have a song called Body Bag, which is literally them describing that their ex-partner will need a body bag because they'll break bones they never had. And this really resonated with me at the time, but was also already starting to get to me in a weird way. The more I grew and the more I saw things more complicated through more empathy, these felt more and more off. But I think this was my misunderstanding of punk. I heard punk when I was a kid, but because I thought politics were the problem with it, I gravitated towards that same kind of anger without the actual politics. And while sometimes that led me to bands that were extremely beautifully personally emotional, a lot of times it led me to bands that also misunderstood this, that replaced actual genuine transgressive punk music with just being mad at their ex-girlfriends. Eventually, there was a situation in the scene where an artist that was very central was outed as being very dangerous to a lot of people. And this ended up impacting a lot of tours, a lot of other artists. The person who managed them was involved with an artist I really liked, and it kind of bled into that. And this really shook me from simple understandings. Up to this point, I really thought it was good people or bad people. You're a bad person and you take advantage of your position. You're a good person and you don't. And you will already know those things based on what they say and how they say it. But these were people who were preaching love while writing these weird songs about their ex-girlfriends. And they were saying, no, it doesn't mean anything. And then it turned out it did mean something. It turned out it was extremely telling of some of the ways that they had treated people in their past. And this shook me from my simple realization. And weirdly enough, it also shook the Wonder Years, a band that I was still following, that had become my favorite band, that was deeply involved in this. They also had this feeling of unsureness, of not knowing how to deal with it. And on their next record, they really embraced it. And this is when political music started to resonate with me. When a band looked at this and went, okay, maybe this part is necessary. Maybe we do need to be fighting against something to have the spirit of punk music as it goes back. So they released a song called Stained Glass Ceilings, a song about grappling with feeling safe in modern America, specifically in cities like Philadelphia, where the lead singer lived. He talks about, quote unquote, a John Wayne with a God complex tells me to buy a gun, like shooting a teenage kid is gonna solve any problems, like it's an arm race, like death don't mean nothing. And you can hear him grappling. He doesn't know how he feels about this. This was a type of messiness that I wasn't used to in my activism. I was used to people saying, this is how I feel, deal with it. But this was somebody bringing emo and punk together with activist political music. And it really resonated with me. And I went on a kick. I got into Against Me, a band that released a tremendous record after the lead singer came out as trans, with the one of the opening lines of the song being, and you want them to notice the ragged ends on your summer dress. You want them to see you like they see every other girl. And as somebody who was seen as a masculine icon in a punk music scene for 20 years, to say that on the first song of your record after coming out, I found incredibly brave. For the first time, the bluntness didn't hit me as simplicity. It didn't hit me as mock-worthy. It hit me as bravery, as passion, as deliberate fighting. I got into We Are the Union, a ska band that also put bluntness deeply into their music with songs like Girls Will Be Boys. Boys will be girls, girls will be boys, and everybody in between will be exactly who they want to be. But then they also got weirdly philosophical with it in certain parts. On their song December, they said, you'll be dead in December. There can't be two of us forever. Embrace the endless changes, flames to the corners of our pages. There can't be two of us forever. And this really got me thinking even more seriously about politics, not just in simplistic ways, but in very complex, meaningful ways. A band I love called Daddy and the Longlegs released a song where they talked about little conversation pieces after bands, how you just say, hey, good set, dude, oh, that's great, before lamenting, looking internally and saying, and I wonder if I've ever said anything worth the time with the mic that my whiteness has granted me. Activism in music has changed. You can hear how these songs feel so different than the songs that so many people here may have grew up with or look back on so fondly. It has changed, in my opinion, but it's changed in ways that at least make sense to me because it's what I needed. I needed that personal aspect to hook onto. I know my country has a lot of problems, and as much as Green Day yelled about them very clearly, I didn't need to be reminded about them. I needed to be pushed to explore them more personally. And hearing these personal approaches did. Hearing the band proper grapple with the potential of how much they could grow if they allowed themselves to be seen as that black artist, but how they can't allow themselves to do that for how it would hurt their view of their own art and themselves as an artist. I heard from future teens about their struggle to be trans and proud in a world where they see their friends being hated for coming out. I heard it in the format, going back to Nate Roos, about talking to your kids about politics and how scary it can be. And now I'm still learning and still being challenged by this music. It has become part of who I am. A few weeks ago, I talked about Not the Time for Emojis by Hot Mulligan, a song about recognizing that if you have good politics, they should come from love. If your politics come from hate, it doesn't matter how good they are. I listened to Career Day talk about how lamenting how his friends don't seem to listen. I wonder what the point is to all of this noise. I just end up disappointed by the inaction of well-intentioned people like my friends. Before saying, thanks for listening, it hardly shows, but thanks for listening at all. I need you to listen. These personal approaches made this click. And in this, I found the Wondeers one last time singing about trying to build a better world for their children. And I truly felt I had come full circle. And now I look around and I see allies and camaraderie in my music, not just activism. I see Gregory here playing music to inspire all of us. I see Jenny Baker, an artist I will be talking to tonight about activism, making pop activist protest music in California in her 20s. I know we have to keep music central to activism because I know other people need to walk this path too. This path led me from judging political and protest music to embracing it for the powerful and meaningful thing it is. And obviously that's good. Politics and protesting are important and meaningful. For me, music and activism are both so interwoven into my past, my future, and myself as a whole that they will always be crucial to each other. And honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way. Thank you so much.